Day 2, Note 2019. Today's a big day because I'm going to be on the panel talking about Zero Trust today. We're going to continue to take you guys back behind the scenes, get some more interviews, and learn all about the good stuff that's going on in identity. Because, of course, it's going big in Vegas. Let's get to it. All right, so we are back. This is the second day of the No Identity Conference 2019, and so we're gonna do some interviews. So I got my good friend, Mr. Richard Bird. It's Chief Customer Innovation Officer, right?
Chief Customer Information Officer.
Information Officer.
But that's okay. I get every variation of CCIO you can possibly imagine.
Right. So he's with Ping, and we're gonna have a quick conversation. So. I saw this whiteboard, right? And as soon as I saw it, I was like, I got to talk to Richard about this. This is going to be like the best conversation ever, right? And so on the whiteboard here at the conference, they have this phrase where it's like, what does identity mean to you, right? And they have the markers where you can go and kind of fill something in. I saw the young lady earlier, she was like, oh, you guys can put a marker. And I was like, oh, I'm going to put something on there, all right. I was like, let me just get a little bit more thought. So I was like, this would be a perfect time to kind of just talk to you about, like, in your words, like, what does identity mean to you?
Sure. Well, I think there's two answers to that, and they develop for me over time. First answer is informed by my own experience and corporate background, right? Which is identity is in that space. Identity is the core of security, right? Knowing that somebody is who they say they are, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they have access to what they're supposed to have access to, is the fundamental foundation to not just a secure company, but a secure society, a secure community. So that's really more the technical and the operational view for me of what identity is. But I will say over the last several months, I've taken that up even further, at an even higher level, really all-encompassing relative to life. That digital identity is the passport, the ticket for every human being to participate in the 21st century society.
Right.
So identity for the people is enablement for people to participate, and I do think that that's a large part of what's being missed in the overall movement around identity security. We're just simply forgetting, everybody needs digital identity in order to be able to participate in the new global economy.
Well, no, absolutely. It triggers a bunch of different things for me, right? I definitely, the first one I focus on is the enterprise, right? So it's being able to have that one place that I know who this person is within this organization, right? And I kind of, we talked about this that time in Denver, right? With the, the identity for the people. We got off into some great conversations that we won't get into here, but like, what that started to do for me in my brain was like, okay, in the quote-unquote real world, right, outside of enterprise identity, right, we have all these different personas that we have, social media accounts, different applications, things like that, or whatever. And even to the aspect that if you look at the younger generation now, how they use social media, like, and they kind of grew up with this and already understand that they have different personas, right? Mm-hmm. They have Finstagram accounts, they have Instagram accounts, right? They have their Snapchats. And so they already kind of gelled their way into this. So it's like, all right, well, Instagram, I want to have this, and here's all my pictures, and this will be my friends and family. Twitter, I'll have that, and I'll just get my news feed, and I'll do stuff from here. Snapchat is where, my real closest friends, and I'll have that stuff, whatever. Then I have my fake Instagram account, my fake this, that, or whatever. And the point that when I start looking at what identity is, it's like, it's that one central place where you can centralize all your different personas together and manage that accordingly, right? Mm-hmm. So outside of the enterprise, it's all the different things we do, our social media profiles, the application accounts. Inside the enterprise, it's what I use to determine all the different ways that I interact with this enterprise, right? Yeah. And it's more than just, a set of attributes. It is also, we talked about this before, like the relationship with that, right? Yeah. We see the persona problem a lot in enterprises where, medical office, medical buildings, educations where it's like, oh, I'm a student and a teacher and a professor, or I'm a doctor and a nurse and a visiting surgeon. Like, how I'm reacting or interacting with the systems, my persona at that time changes what my access to be, right? And I think we miss a lot of that in identity.
Well, and I think that we miss it because we have kind of universally failed in the entire development of technology to relate the lessons and the requirements back from the analog into the digital. So what you just explained is one of the things that I talk about frequently. Like all of the things that we see with young people today, that are in terms of how they're separating, bifurcating, differentiating, their personas across platforms, is really representative of how we do it in real life, right? Yeah. We define our identity in real life based on context, content, and relationships, right? So when I go to church, I am in context-wise, I am in church. Content-wise, it's whatever is being preached that day.
Right.
Right? And relationship-wise, I have a relationship with that congregation, I have a relationship with that pastor, which means that when context, content, and relationship comes together, my identity in that church is as a churchgoer. I am not in there as if I am in the club or in the bar on Friday night, because that's a different context, it's a different content, it's a different relationship. My persona may be totally different. In fact, in most cases in America, my persona is much different on Friday night than it is on Sunday morning, right? Because of those three characteristics. So how do we fold context, content, and relationship? And if we look at it from a corporate setting, right, how do we fold that into a corporate setting where those components of your identity are part of the decision set around what you should and should not have access to? Right? We didn't do any of that modeling of the real world into the digital world initially because, frankly, because technology was considered to be mystical, right? Mythological. You had to have a special talent, a special language, and special knowledge. And now, you don't even need, there's so much you can do technically today, you don't need technical skills for it. You can do websites, you can run podcasts, you can set up entire brands in the digital realm, and you need very, very little technical ability. So that is really what is bringing to the fore the fact that we don't have all of these basic real life fundamental constructs guiding us in our technical design and development.
Right. Well, we didn't design with identity in mind, right? We created these applications and we did what we had to do for that moment in time. I had to build this application, I got to authenticate, so I need a store of users. Fine, I'll do that, right? Oh crap, now I got more applications and I need a way to proxy this authentication. Okay, now I'll do this. Like, we never took a step back and said, how are we going to design how identity actually flows through our systems? It was this byproduct that we had to have in order to get to whatever information, right? I need to build a database, people need to access it to it, so I need to have users, but my focus is I need to build this database. And now, after years and years of doing that, we're finally going back like, oh crap, I need to manage this identity. And we're struggling to have those conversations. Okay, well, let's look back. How are we going to design this? How do we want users to really interact and that to flow? So I think that's all the press that identity is getting now, all the money that people are spending on it. I'm hoping we can start shifting that conversation to like, hey, let's figure out how we're going to design around identity, right? Let's not just buy products and put stuff together because that's going to just push the same problem down that same hill. Let's take a step back and say, let's design this with identity in mind and how we want those interactions to happen.
So I think when we think about designing it with identity in mind, my way of trying to push that notion and concept has changed over the years. I mean, initially when I first started, and I was like, wow, look how important identity is. Very few people were on board with me on that, right? They were like, I got firewalls, I've got NACs, I got this, I got that, and I was like, no. I mean, it seems like it seems like we're missing the importance of this identity component in the entire structure, and it finally got to a point over the last couple of years where I take a very Socratic method to it, right? I just ask questions. Right. Let people lead themselves to their own conclusions. And one of the questions that I ask relative to, all of this new attention to identity is, what happens if you take your security architecture diagram for your company and you take that nugget of treasure that you feel like you're protecting, that asset, the data, whatever, and you take that out of the center of that and you put a human being there. Like, what does your security architecture begin to look like when you put in a human being in the middle of everything that you built instead of stuff, right? And I've spoken on this extensively. We are missing the fact, and we, as the global we relative to executives and business leaders, we're missing the fact that the style of warfare and the digital frontier changed about 6 or 7 years ago with the beginnings of malware and then the success of fishing and spearfishing and smishing and vishing and all of the different things, all the ishings that are going on now, right? And there's a reason why all of those ishings are accelerating, because they're all behaviorally oriented, right?
Yep.
The hackers are becoming masters of psychological warfare. We built perimeters, firewalls, keys, encryption, doors, moats, right? Everything reflective of our experience with traditional warfare, right? Protect the stuff. That's what we do, and that's what we did in traditional military warfare. When we got 6 or 7 years ago with phishing and all of the other activities, the landscape changed substantially around the defensive perimeters because we moved into guerrilla warfare, right? Guerrilla warfare is all about taking over local populations, taking over identities, acting like somebody that you're not, to get into things that you shouldn't be able to get into. It went from anti-materiel to anti-personnel.
Yep.
And there is a reason, and when people argue with me about this, this is one of the few times where I'm adamant about, this is a fact-based discussion. Go look at the last 2 years worth of hacking that's been going on, and the treasure that has been attacked the most frequently are user credentials and information. There is a reason why hackers and nation-state actors are stealing all of the information about people, because they're building digital people to go do all of these bad things that they're doing, right? And so, put that human being in the center of your security mindset, and everything begins to change almost intuitively.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. And it was kind of, we'll wrap on this. Like one of the last, kind of closing statements I talked about at the panel on Zero Trust, right? All these buzzwords, whatever it is, some new count framework, all it is it's the same principles. It's just us having the conversations again from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Because the attack surface is changing, right?
Yeah.
And as we continue to accelerate with technology, we have to constantly look at things differently, right? Okay, this is how I did it 10 years ago. How am I going to do it now? This is how I did it, especially in technology and software development. This is how I did it 6 months ago. How am I going to do it now, right? We constantly have to be looking at and changing that perspective and applying those same principles, but realizing that, okay, it's different how we go about it now. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Richard, man, as always, pleasure.
Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for the time, man.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we will catch you guys a little bit later at No 2019.
Cool, man.